You're covering up your mic with your hand.
Or would you like fries with that?
So I'm going to use PowerPoint here, and I can jump off to do demo when I've got demos set up at the end if we need to. Okay. By the way, I just go back in time a little bit. This is quite a while ago. There I am with Reid Hoffman at a conference where I brought him into Denver to speak for us there. So I got to spend the day with Reid Hoffman.
You haven't lost any hair. You have the same amount of hair.
I almost, yeah. I had
a joker.
I had an earring there and eyeglasses and a goatee. And I think I might even had a ponytail back behind.
I was gonna say the most fascinating thing about this picture is that you're in a suit and tie.
Yeah, I still use that Jerry Garcia tie. And notice I got 2 pens. I'm an engineer. Okay.
I love it, dude. I love it.
Yep. All right. So here's why it matters. Okay. We want to boost our stats. That helps with everything, higher this, lower that, easier to manage. We don't have so many resources anymore. You can't chunk out the invites like you used to, and you can get in trouble if you do things wrong. And when you target people that you shouldn't be targeting, that's when you get into trouble. I'm a school teacher. What are you trying to sell me software for? That kind of thing. Those are the folks that get you into trouble, and the precision helps reduce that. You're really in a race for time. You've got about 7 seconds for your Sales Navigator search to run. It's not a matter of how many characters or how many fields or it's how long it takes the thing to run. And it runs about 7 seconds before it crashes. Your search is taking a long time to complete. Try reducing the number of filters you have applied. In other words, try making it less precise. It's a trade-off. 7 seconds sounds familiar, doesn't it? Okay. I go 7 seconds. That rings a bell somewhere, All right. The key is Boolean. The key to precision is Boolean. You've got all these drop-down filters you can do and stuff, and everyone can do that. That's not where the game's won, by picking the better drop-down boxes. The game is won in the art of Boolean. So using Boolean to target who you want, maybe in a simple Boolean phrase, maybe in a fancy one that requires a bunch of testing, quite frankly, or both. You can put multiple phrases in. There's not one phrase. As you'll see here, we're going to put a dozen phrases in. Okay. You might ignore things on purpose because they have dirty results. Owner and entrepreneur are never part of our targeting in general, unless we do a specific campaign with specific other excludes, like no dogs. I'd eliminate the dog owners, if you know what I mean. Because you can literally own just about anything and show up on a search. So we've got a special way of excluding job titles, A through Z. The titles that might show up that we want to exclude in the software, there's the A's and the B's, and you can see A, B, C, D, and so on. This is a really great way of zeroing in on your audience and zeroing out the people that don't belong. This is a campaign in biotech. So there's biotech managers that we don't want biotech managers. And we don't want diagnosticians or diagnostic people either. And this is what it looks like when you paste them in. The greens are the good ones. You can see A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It'll keep on going. All right. You can use the same principle in the company title, the company name field, to exclude certain things. We did a biotech campaign for same client and found out that there were credit unions showing up under biotech. So by using the word credit here and excluding it, we eliminated them and other financial consultants and the like. Okay. This takes part of the CPU. Okay. Every one of these filters that you add costs you a little bit of time against your 7 seconds. And this is one. Industries, huge. Industries is huge. Everyone has an industry, and you can only have one, and you must have one. It's like a social security number. You only can have one, unless you break the law. Okay. I've taken the 147 industries and put them into 14 categories that I'm going to show you here in a moment. And you can download the list or go see the list. You can say technology. I'll take manufacturing or so. Okay. So you use these to include, okay, to include or exclude. I don't want these 50 industries, but I'll take the other 100, or just the opposite. I'll take these 17 and exclude the others. And when you're running campaigns like we do, you can't run it all at one time. We'll use industries or we'll use states, locations, to segment the industries to say, here's January's campaign, here's February's campaign. The key here with industries is nobody gets left out. With other filters, somebody gets left out. Someone, they don't all apply to somebody. Someone it's not a binary choice, but here it is, it's binary. So here's like the industry categories on the left that we utilize. And here I just broke out transportation for you to see how transportation looks. And you could say, I'll just go for transportation. Or you could say, you know what, I'll take warehousing and transportation. I'll skip shipbuilding and so on. But it's a way of filtering out other people to focus more attention. And then, of course, your messaging is about transportation. It's not about companies who have great products. It's about transportation. You can be more specific. Okay? You always want to use a company size filter. Always. No one targets the John Doe in his basement and 3M or General Motors. And you're going to get all that in your searches. So you have to use this filter. Okay, you must use it. And I suggest you find a low, medium, high sort of within even the small, medium, and large. Okay, so you get into these timeouts, you're putting this stuff together and it times out on you. Okay, what do you do? What do you do when it times out? Well, you got to break it up. You got to reduce, you got to conserve. So start by, if you can just deal with the twos, if you got a lot of results, well, just do the twos. It's the threes that cause the problems. If you eliminate the threes, you'll almost always get back into where your search works again. Okay. The company size filters, just pick one, and then you can pick the next and pick the next. You can segment it that way. The big thing you end up doing usually is reducing the Boolean. And I'll show you in a live deal at the end of my demo what the reducing the Boolean means. Okay, we had the Boolean that was too much, then we cut it back a little bit, still too much, cut it back some more, and it worked. Okay, so I'll show you that. Okay, and that company name filter is one where you can filter that back. Instead of having a couple rows of stuff, have just one row, or just reduce the words there if you like. Okay, so when you get near the limit, you want to be right at the edge. You really do. I mean, take every last little bit here. And when you get near the limit, you can add a word back or so, you know, and then see what puts it over, and then just kind of back it off. It's just it's an analog process sort of there. You're in a matter of time, though. It's not a matter of words. The words matter because they add to the time, but it's not the words directly. It's the time. Okay. So when you put a search together, do it in this order. Use the non-Boolean stuff first, your company size, your twos and threes. You know, if you have a keyword or so to use, you know, the years of experience, things you can do checkbox stuff with. Then do the company name Boolean, you know, with to take out the credit unions and stuff like that. Then the titles you like that you want that are going to be green when you paste them in. And then one paragraph at a time, one sentence at a time, include the excluded titles you want to delete, you want to have taken out. And somewhere along the way, it may crash. And if it crashes, then you go on the word diet and you do these things that I just talked about here if it crashes. Okay, do it in this order. Put the excluded job titles last, because then you'll know how much reorganizing you need to do. There's some other really good forms of targeting I wanted to cover here, and some of this has been covered already, but I've got some little twists on them in many cases. Okay. This one is great. If you can use spreadsheets that have profile URLs in them, they're wonderful. Systems out there will provide this, and assistants and stuff can literally just rifle through these and send a message and stuff if you're not using systems. Wonderful, wonderful way of targeting and stuff. You might have all kinds of fields like revenues and stuff out on the right, and you can filter on that. Events I love. To do events, it's only future events. So you can't target people from past event, only a future event. In the future, when the event is in the past, you can still target them because you'll have a list perhaps, okay? But you must register first, and then this is what you see. And you can, once you get the event there, you can add a state or countries and keywords like titles and stuff to it. All right. The other thing is when you're doing our fancy searches with our criteria, we're going to add people to a lead list. And you do this one page at a time. 25 connections, boom, add to a list. This one's in Spanish. That's Esmeralda there. So we're doing some campaigns for her. So another great one is people who engage a post. Okay, so there's a link to the post. You get to it from the 3 dots there. And if you're using systems and stuff, this is a wonderful thing out here. You might put these people onto a lead list and scrub it, because not everyone who likes a post or comments on a post is somebody who's for you. Okay, I mean, high school students might really dig Tony Robbins, okay, but they're probably not part of your audience. So I'd encourage you to take this part here, this component, and use lead lists with it. Groups, we talked about groups. I've got something to share here on groups. There's not much happening with groups other than they are a opted in self-interest. The problem with groups is vendors. Most of the groups out there are searching, or vendors searching for people who should really be in the group. The CEO group is vendors who want to do work with CEOs, not CEOs so much. Here's a case in point, SAP community, 440,000 members in it. They're almost all vendors,
Wow.
So we got it whittled down to 8,500 from 440,000 by using the industries, by the industries that vendors are in. And I took out titles like account manager and stuff. Got it down to 8,500. We eventually got it down to 2,500. But there's, groups eliminate the cobwebs in the groups. It's the elimination, that fancy Boolean I showed you. If you start with a group, you can still whittle out some pretty good stuff. Now, lead lists, they're really important because we can scrub from a lead list. Everything on a lead list is fixed. Who's on it? Fixed. What order? Fixed. There's no algorithm determining who's where and what. They're in 3 orders: name, date, or company. And it lets you kind of look at your data at LinkedIn as a database, as a CRM. And that is a CRM for many of our clients who have no CRM at all, but they got their lead lists and they got their Sales Navigator. Later, you can take that lead list and you can add more criteria to it. So the lead list could be cold wall banker people. And then you can start with cold wall banker people and say, I just want to see ones in the US that have a company size of this, for example. So you don't have, you can use a more of a broad lead list and segment it down with extra filters. Right. So naming lead lists, I think, is important. The stuff that goes into that, to what made that lead list, should be in the name of it, should be in the title. You could put a description in as well, but the description, the title of the lead list should tell you who's in it, because there's no way of knowing afterwards unless you keep tracks outside. So there's another big deal with lead lists. Okay. So creating them, these are cold wall banker people in the US, first level connections. And there's another 25 of them here, 2 more to add. I can filter that and say, just show me the ones that have more than 50 employees, in another filter there. Okay. But you add them from page 1 to the end. You add from page 1 to the end. The big deal about lead list is scrubbing, because you can determine who stays on the lead list, not just who goes on there, but who stays on there. Why it's necessary is people have multiple jobs. This guy shows up as a president, but he's really probably the sales director at this company. And I'm really looking for presidents. So he'll show up on the lead list because I'm going to add all the presidents to the lead list. And then he'll get scrubbed afterwards because he's probably really got a side job as presidents of Sales Team Magic. He's really, I can tell by the logo here that his real job is sales director, and I'm not looking for sales directors. That's the power of scrubbing lists, creating a list and scrubbing it. I reach out to him and he goes, I don't own the company here. What are you talking about? That kind of stuff. But here's where the rub comes. Okay, pay attention here. This has never been discussed, I don't think, here, even though we've discussed the topic of lead lists a lot. All right, this is what you see when you're creating a lead list. Here's 10, 25 people on this page. I'm going check, 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 save to lead list. Okay, all right, see, president and CEO of Wexford Golf. Once he gets on the lead list, this is what I see. I see his headline, not the qualifying job title. And the headline rules. So we would eliminate Joel here from our campaign. He'd be gone. Okay. And so that's why scrubbing is so important. It lets you see the headline, and the headline is generally what they're really about, not the job title of multiple jobs they got down there. This is what rules.
Yeah.
So when you're scrubbing, you can scrub one at a time, or you can scrub with a page at a time, from one page at a time. We did cover this before. Okay. Prioritizing, we've covered this before. The best way to prioritize is local targets. They rule first. If you're campaigning or local places and stuff, sometimes you'll try a remote area. Frankly, we use Missouri. I hate it, guys. I hate to say it. We use Mississippi and Missouri for trials to test on. And then we go to the target markets we care the most about. I've used Arkansas as well. The P30, the posted in 30 days people, they're high priority. Second level connections, some combination. The threes are the ones you don't see here. We eventually get to the threes. The threes that have posted in 30 days, I like them a lot. The threes that are local like them too. But the threes that are in remote markets, we may never target them. So the way to focus on new people each time is to exclude the people we've already put on our lead lists. Just hit the exclude button, and now we're just going to find new people. Okay? That's what I have. So that's what I have. I tried to be kind of timely.
Fantastic.
This navigatinglinkedin.com back here is where you can get that industry list that has the segmented industries and the criteria. If you go there, you can see it there and even copy and paste it into a spreadsheet and stuff.
Hey, Mike, can you go to that one slide where you were showing the post?
Yep.
Yep, that one right there. Now, when you you've got highlighted copy link to post, are you doing something specific with that?
Yes,
in terms of bringing that into the search?
Yeah. So I have systems that'll take that as a target, and they'll pull it in, and I can view the people within the system and scrub within the system, and pull out the students and stuff there rather than scrubbing on a lead list.
So you have a third-party tool that you can drop that link in, and it will show you all the people who have liked it and commented.
I can pick either the commenters or the likers or both.
Very interesting.
It is. I'm doing this with some other people too. I didn't use the actual person that I'm using with my client because they kind of keep that kind of close. But if the connection request says, "Hey, I'm a big Tony Robbins fan. I see you are too. Let's connect." And the connect rates are 40-50% higher sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But you got to scrub that list. You just don't want to. You still want to scrub that, and within the systems you can scrub before you go.
Yep. Does it then drop it back into Sales Navigator, or does it come through a spreadsheet, or how's it work?
Well, you could do a visit campaign, for example, and spit out a spreadsheet. Now you've got your spreadsheet with the profile URLs in it, like we were showing.
Okay.
And you don't have to be using a difficult tool. Some of the simple tools will do that stuff. I wanted to show you a little bit about how the Boolean worked. I promise I do a little demo.
Yeah, Mike,
that would be good.
Mike, can you explain for everyone here that has never used Boolean, can you explain the difference between working within, and you can share your screen, the difference between working within a predetermined search category and how Boolean works within that field?
Yeah, sure. So there are certain fields within Sales Navigator where Boolean applies. Okay. Job titles is where it applies. Keywords is where it applies. Company names is where it applies. It does not apply to industries, bunch of other things it does not apply. If there's a drop-down list, it does not apply. It applies where you can type words into a box. And the or is in all caps. And I always tell people, put everything else in lowercase, just so it's really easy to see what you're doing. It's easier to see if you got 2 spaces instead of 1, it can cause it to kind of do something funny. I only put quotes around something that is, I put quotes around anything that is not a single word. Even if it's got a dash in it, I'll put quotes around it. V dot, P dot, quotes around it. I know you'll put quotes around a single word, Isaac. I don't. It's not necessary. But, you know, I mean, nothing wrong with it, but it adds characters. And over time, those amount of characters might add to something, at least in theory. In LinkedIn, you can only use 5 or commands and you're done. That's all you can have in LinkedIn. In Sales Navigator, it's not a matter of how many ors. It's a matter of how much time the search takes. That's been determined now. It's not a matter of how many words. It's not a big fat paragraph versus a little paragraph. It's how the big fat paragraph takes more time to process. That's it. It's not the amount of words. It's the processing time. And you'll time it. We did this all last week, just 7 seconds. At 8 seconds, boom, time's out. Right it there. So do the Boolean in LinkedIn in a Google Doc and look at it really good and then copy and paste it in. The Boolean that has the brackets and the ors and the complex stuff takes more CPU cycles, I anticipate. When we cut out a little bit of that logic, as you're going to see here in a moment, I'm going to show you here, bigger Boolean, smaller, then it works. As we cut it back into the system. As we add criteria in, it crashes again. As I add stuff, it takes out. I'll show you the art. There's an art, quite an art to this. And I'm going to share it with you. It's kind of fun. So let me share again. That's a little bit about Boolean. So darn, this search timed out. We have our company names here, and we were really careful. We really scrubbed that carefully. We've got our criteria to take things out, and we scrubbed these very hard. We scrubbed them really hard here. And we've got just, you know, this one here has got some logic in it. So that takes a little bit of CPU. We're not doing P30 or anything here with it. We've just got one industry, United States, 2s and 3s. Now, it's the 3s that cause the problems. If I eliminate 3s here, I'll bet this comes back to life. Count the seconds. Oh, it came back to life. See? If I add the 3s back in, you know what's going to happen, right? It's going to go away. So it's like, oh, darn. I trade off. I really want the 2s and 3s, let's say in this case. I really want them, and it's going to crash. Oh, it didn't crash this time. Can you believe that? Okay. So if you get it here, and we're on page 1, if you get it so it doesn't, go to page 8 and see if it still works. If it still works at page 8, you might have something.
Mike, have you tested server load?
And it crashes at page 8. You see what I mean? Just hold on one sec, Monty. You see what I mean there? Just because it works at page 1, you got to go down to the bottom and go to a future page like 8 to see if it still crashes. If I take out these filters, it's going to come back. If I haven't forgot about you, Monty, okay? Haven't forgot.
Oh, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. You know, if I put that in, it's going to crash probably. It didn't. So I really want those 2. But if I go to page 8, watch what happens, right? So you see how you can spend an hour just really refining something, which I did. I spent hours and hours with clients having to redo their stuff. Good. So that one seemed to work. You can eliminate these to try to get them to work better. And I'll show you what we mean. We started this here with, we engineered that as carefully as we could. We're specifically ignoring those titles, not using them at all. We're not going for the top of the company. This is the stuff, and this is a complex piece here. A lot of CPU cycles go into doing that one.
Can I chime in here?
Out. It was just this one. Yep. Keep going.
So just for everyone watching, once you run the search in Sales Nav, you cannot just click edit on what you have already typed in. And so it's kind of a, if you're wanting to be precise with targeting, and I really want to keep the Q&A on more on being precise with targeting. Once you run the search and you want to clean it up a little bit, you can't just go in and like add more of your inclusion exclusions into the string you already did. So it's very helpful to use like a Google Doc or a text editor to kind of build your inclusion exclusion there and then drop it back into Sales Nav. That's what we tend to do, because it's like, oh crap, I just typed literally 30 things and now I have to redo it. Oh crap.
Yep, Boolean is made for a text editor like this. It really is. Okay. So when I talked about the A through Z, these are the A through Z titles that we exclude in this campaign, which is about biotech. So it has diagnosticians in it. Okay. And from here, we copy them down and we start putting them together. Here's the A's and the B's together, the C's on their own. There's D, E, and F, and then eliminating ones here that just don't apply. This turned out to be too much Boolean. So there's the search for it, turned out to be too much. So we tried again, trimmed some more back, still crashed. So we came back and we got it. Here's another version at the end here. That version worked. Paste it in. Now these could even go, you know, technically you could group these together a little bit, even a little bit more if you wanted to. Okay. But this is how to engineer the very finest level of Boolean into these searches so that you get something like what we were talking about here. If you add something more in at any time, it could crash at any time.
Mike, how accurate do you feel like the company headcount filter is?
Not very accurate.
I think that
it's more accurate in bigger white collar companies.
Yeah.
At lower levels, it's not. I mean, you got a lawn mowing company with 100 employees and they got 10 people showing up on the headcount.
Yeah, since the company page owner chooses the headcount, I find that the larger organizations, they get with the program, they're like, oh, we should probably make this accurate. But when you're dealing with anyone from like 3 employees to like 30, in the beginning, they want to look like a big deal, so they fudge the numbers.
That's
and then
right.
they actually grow and they forget to keep up. So I was just kind of curious if you had.
You get it both ways. You know, when you see a filter that says 51 to 200, you should count on that being 51. You know, you shouldn't count on that being 150, 200 in your mind. I mean, there are more the smaller you are, the more companies there are. You know, at the 1 to 10s, they're mostly 1s. At the 11 to 50s, they're mostly 11s, or they could even be 5 employees saying, yeah, I want to look bigger. I don't want to be the lowest checkbox on the scale.
So,
but then you mentioned companies growing and stuff, and they never go back and check their box from 11 to 50. Now they're 500 employees.
So when I saw your document and then I saw all the code that was produced from the search and everything, my brain misfired and like the left side of my face started to droop. What, as far as the detailed as you go, what for the average user, or I should say that, let me say it this way. Who should be digging into this level of granularity in their searches? Like, what is it? Large companies? Should the individual solopreneur be doing this at, you know what I mean? Who's best suited for Boolean and the narrowing of your search?
That's a really great question. First of all, you got to be willing to pay $100 a month for Sales Navigator. So that'll tell you right there.
Yep.
You know, so that eliminates 90% of the world out there. So Sales Navigator users that care about their time. It's about time. It's about time, you know, the time out of the search at the extreme, but it's also about your time. Okay. I mean, how much time do you want to spend with people who are not part of your target market versus how much time do you want to spend eliminating them from your lists? You know, how much time polishing. That's why the Boolean, the fancy Boolean does a lot of that scrubbing for you. If I took that out, you'd find school teachers and students and oncologists and all kinds of folks. You got to manually go scrub. Or engage and have them IDK you, and then you're in IDK land trouble with people having to put an email address in with people don't know you. Staying out of trouble. If you're using systems at all, you've really got to be doing this stuff, because with systems, you kind of need to hide your tracks a little bit. You know, you don't want people complaining. You don't want IDKs. Every little piece of spotlight from LinkedIn on you is 2 pieces of spotlight if you're using a system or a tool. So you got to kind of really make sure that your connect rates are high. You know, and high connect rates cure a lot. I mean, Isaac, don't they? I mean, if your campaign's cruising along just fine, you got a 40% connect rate. You don't got too much to worry about.
Mike, how do you handle, you know, when you've got someone who wants to engage with the owner of a smaller company, and those individuals tend to have more than one current role open, right? So if you are wanting to find those individuals and its owner, I find that there's always like, you do owner, but it's like, it feels like such a dirty search result because there's so many mixed things there, because they could be the owner of their ice cream truck.
We don't target owners at all. They're owners and entrepreneurs are 2 words we don't use in the targeting.
But what if somebody, that's all they sell to? Do you have any advice for cleaning up that audience?
Yeah, a lot of Boolean to take out the other stuff that goes with owners. Take out the word dog, take out the word car, you know, those sort of principles. Here's where you find the words to take out. You run your darn search and you're looking at it and you're seeing stuff and you go, oh, these folks are showing up that shouldn't be showing up. Directors or vice presidents or dog owners or whatever. The rub is that you can't see what their headline is until you get them on a lead list. You're just seeing the qualifying job title. So they look really good because that's the title you're looking for, all the matches. But when you see owner and it says something with the owner title there, then you start going, oh, that's something, I should exclude that. Owner of a product owner. I should go not product owner and have the software take that out. So yeah, owner is really ugly. But if you find owner, you can go to the company page and see if they don't have some other folks at the company that might be good targets as well. That's another thing I didn't cover is other people at the company there that you might want to add to your list as well, not just the person you caught up in the search.
It's all fantastic information. Let's see if I want to make sure that we get enough time for questions in for people, because I know people probably have a lot of questions. We've got some in our chat, which we'll get to. So over the next 4 or 5 minutes or so, any other panel members want to jump in with some questions or comments?
Glad. I love it, Mike. You nail it.
Thank you.
One of the things that I find, and this is the challenge with user data, okay, because what we see in these profiles is a lot about what the user inputs. One is that they misclassify their industry. So let's say, you know, they're an HR person in financial services. Are they saying their industry is financial services or their industry is HR? So that's one thing. The other thing is, let's say people have different roles. The LinkedIn search is only going to pick, like, it may pick something in their profile, but then when I look at it and look at those search results and even sometimes bring it into a list, then it's like, oh no, why did that one come through? So sometimes, you know, I think, and Mike, I apologize if I missed that. Did you talk about how you bring it through to lists and then bring it back out and do exclusions that way? Because it's kind of like you do the search, right? You get the search, then you look at the profiles and you create a list. So big search, you know, nail it down with the exclusions. Then you create a list, then you look at the list and see, okay, wait, there's some, you know, graph that got in the list, and then you bring it out again and then bring it back through. So then you're left with something really, really super clean. So, but you know, it's an art. There's an art to this, and you have a hell of a lot of patience, Mike. So,
Your eyes really go crazy on you after a while. You zoom in, you go Control Plus to zoom in stuff when you're looking at this. Scroll left and right.
It's wild, but I think it's great. And there's one thing that you have, little trick that you taught about, like, say, you have the name of a person in a company, but you don't know their profile, where you set it up in a spreadsheet where you can put the name of the person, the name of the company, and then LinkedIn.com. And if you do that in a Google search, because there's going to be a limit, LinkedIn is going to hit you with some sort of like, hey, you're doing too much searching. So when you do it that way, you're basically using Google to do the search, and that will render usually their profile pretty high.
Yeah.
If you put that in. So it's a column with their first name, their name, whatever.
Yeah, sure. I can show that here.
Yeah, I would show that. And then, and the other thing too is, if anyone has a paid account and you're not doing things like this, then why would you have a paid account? If it's only for profile views, then just look at your profile every day. I mean, because it's not cheap, but there's so many people I know that have, they're paying bucks for these accounts and they're just not doing it. So anyway, thank you so much.
Let me show the thing that we were just talking about, a little trick that I'm doing some work with Judy on some fancy targeting, and let me share what we were talking about. So if you to reduce the amount of searches on LinkedIn itself, if you've got a spreadsheet, you add a column in called LinkedIn and put the names and companies and stuff together in the right order. You can literally just do this. You're using Google to find the search for this person, and his name,
I would take out the location. I would just put the name and the company, because sometimes.
So you can kind of whittle it down and stuff, and you end up with Dean right here. It's usually the first. Oh, maybe it's a different Dean. So it's usually what you're doing is you're using Google to search on something, and you just add a field called LinkedIn.com to the first name, last name, company, whatever. It'll provide a URL. You go right into it. So it's as if you had the URL already in that spreadsheet, like Judy said, except you got to search to go get it.
And also keep in mind that the Sales Navigator URL is different than the LinkedIn URL. And I really prefer, no matter what, doing all my outreach through the regular LinkedIn, because otherwise you're managing multiple poorly organized inboxes. And so
that Sales Navigator URL doesn't seem to be a permanent URL.
No.
It's encoded, it seems to expire, or something goes wiggy with it. And it's 200 characters long. It's not the nice pretty one that you see, right? / Judy Hayes.
Now, one other thing, Mike, that was kind of interesting, like you got the Boolean, right? There's a feature if you're on Navigator, the next level up, so I think it's like $149 a month for an individual, you can upload a CSV of company names. So that would be an account list. And then what you can do is you can create the Boolean by the title and pull in the account list. And then that brings up people within those accounts. So if you're doing ABM, now you've got the target accounts, you've got the target titles, and you've got a really nice list to work with. So,
Hey, Isaac, when you upload a list of companies, how good is the matchup? That someone spells it with an LLC or an L dot, C dot, that kind of stuff.
That is okay. So that's a great question. We actually ran some tests on this like 3 weeks ago. So with what used to be called Teams, which is now Advanced, you can do the CSV import. The deal breaker there is 100% having the LinkedIn company page URL. That is what you need.
If you've already got that, you're halfway there already.
If you do not have that, the miss rate is so high, we won't even use it.
That's
why so many people, if they're not connected properly to their company, which I see it all the time, you get those gray avatars, or the company's not set up properly, and there's all these iterations of a company. Yeah, again, user data.
Well, the other thing is the matchup, the way someone spells something.
As you guys can all see this, so as people that do this for a living, we can geek out on this all day long. But I want to make sure we get into some questions outside the panel. So if you've been patiently waiting, go ahead, raise your hand. Jay, I know you had a question in the chat. I'm happy to read it for you, or you can just unmute and ask it yourself. All right. So Jay's asking if headline rules, right? Therefore, should we all have our titles and the headlines kind of accurate to our headline or to our title, if you would, and not the catchy storylines that get more attention?
I believe so.
If you want to get sold to,
Yes.
Now your headline has multiple components to it. You've got a part and then a separator and another part and a separator and another part. So what goes first is what matters the most, because that's what shows up like an invitation will show the first so many characters of your headline. The invitation shows the first 8 words or so. So that's like the intro to the message that's in your connection request. But yeah, I do believe so. And I use that segmented approach, title and company, then what I'm good at, and then a little tagline kind of thing.
I do the same. Yeah, I have a title and then your creative, catchy.
Great question, by the way. It's a great question. You see so many people that start out with, I can increase your sales by 10x, as the first words that they see. And, I don't even connect with folks like that. And I bet they have trouble connecting with people, quite frankly.
Great question. Vinay, you're up.
Okay, thank you. So what I want to ask is whether can we use Sales Navigator as a replacement for something like a Zoom Info? Since some of the sales experts that I've talked with said that for getting most of the leads that you want for a company, it's using something expensive like Zoom Info is the way. But is it possible to do the same activities using Sales Navigator?
Monty,
Yes.
go ahead.
Well, this is more for you and Isaac, and I'll let you handle the lion's share of that. But all the fields that Sales Navigator uses, you can get pretty close to all the Zoom Info and all that kind of stuff. Is the difference between the two is Zoom Info and stuff like that. They're collecting data across the internet, whereas LinkedIn is only LinkedIn data.
so here, I'll chime in. Zoom Info has very comparable search filters at the person and company level. Absolutely. The two, in my opinion, they can work together instead of be a this or that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to be creating a workflow, try and think of how, where do you want to originate targeting? Do you originate targeting in Sales Nav, engage them on LinkedIn, and if they don't play there, go to Zoom Info? Or is your workflow originate in Zoom Info? Is your workflow originate in Zoom Info? If they don't go there, then move to LinkedIn. The kind of the cost benefit with your time thing there that I'd say to be mindful of is, this is what we've encountered when we start with Zoom Info, is you're not guaranteed to get active people on LinkedIn. So if you start your targeting on LinkedIn, the search results are going to pull up the most active users first.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you engage there, starting your targeting on LinkedIn, you're going to get better engagement on LinkedIn. So the targeting might be more accurate on Zoom Info, but when you go to LinkedIn, it's like you're not getting the most active users, and so your engagement is a little less. So it's kind of a trade-off there. But it also depends on who you're engaging. If you're starting with an audience that's just really active, then great. But just be aware of that when you test those different workflows.
The other platforms will have more information too. They might have information like who uses IBM versus Google, or annual revenues, or number of branch offices, or other things, other pieces of data that they gather that LinkedIn doesn't provide. That's like the big deal with those lists. I showed the list about how to copy the name and company and LinkedIn.com and stuff.
Yeah.
If you've got a list of, let's say it's auto dealers in Southwest Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what am I going to do with that on LinkedIn? Well, it's some of the things like we talked about. Judy had mentioned, you'd find the company pages of the you find the companies out there and then you run filters against those companies. There's one way. Or you go to Zoom Info and you put the zip codes for the Southwest Minnesota, you put in the SIC code for auto dealers, and there you go, something like that.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
The libraries are good for
Okay.
this stuff, by the way. I mentioned SIC codes and stuff. The libraries have got all kinds of amazing stuff. You don't even need to go to the library to get it. You could just literally log in. I like to go there to do it, but those databases are, sometimes a little outdated. They're in printed books sometimes. Imagine that.
Excellent. We got about 6 minutes left. Anybody else have a question for Mike? I have one about the 7 seconds. Have you found that to be load oriented, like server loads? Like at times, are they busier than others? Or is it just 7 seconds period?
It's been pretty much 7 seconds all across. I work at night and I work during the day, and it's been right there. I see that timed out thing. Literally, I've seen that 100 times or more in the last couple of days as I'm engineering. We're re-engineering all of our clients using that ABC exclusion stuff, kind of the next version of our Boolean for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm pushing everyone right to the edge and taking them back, 10 words back from the edge, that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty in tune to that. I haven't seen it go beyond that. Not much. Now I'm on a bitchin' machine. So it might be even less, perhaps, on a machine with less RAM. I got 64 gigs of RAM here. So I'm really
So
smoking.
you think it's associated with your computer, and
Only
your
a little bit.
connection more than it is the LinkedIn servers?
I know. I think it's the servers mostly, but I think your local computer matters a bit.
Interesting. Okay.
I do.
Has anyone here used the revenue targeting parameter? Because when we're talking about targeting, when we're doing a lot of onboarding with clients, something that always gets brought up is, we work with companies that do this many million a year in revenue, and it's a search filter at the account or company level, not at the person level. So we've messed in there a little bit, and I've never really been that happy with that as a targeting originator, even though it seems to be really important for a lot of businesses. Has anybody here?
It's about as accurate as the employee count. I can tell you that right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or less so. And only
Right.
with bigger companies. Small companies don't report revenues.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Publicly traded, where it's part of their data release on a quarterly basis.
Do you ever use the activity filter, like in your searches, as part of the criteria in terms of whether or not they've posted in the past 30 days?
I use it all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that and second level connections. If you can do 2s and P30s, wow. If you just got you got to have a lot of targets to start with if you're going to do the posted in 30 filter, because it's small fraction.
Mhm.
I love it. It's my favorite. Yeah, yeah. I guess I'm not the only one.
Yeah. Side note on the activity filter, that's not their overall activity. That's just whether they've posted, right?
Yeah, I'd like to see more activity filters, wouldn't you? I mean,
Well, I would, because
That's
it's very,
pretty good.
there's, when you have 1% of the platform that actually posts, it doesn't mean that they're not engaged. They still may be commenting on other people's stuff and never post. So there's activity there. So it's almost kind of a misnomer there. But Vivica, go ahead.
Yeah, I just kind of to sort of piggyback on that. I mean, I'm actually looking for people that in that 30-day filter, which I use all the time in Sales Navigator. I'm actually looking for people that aren't necessarily super engaged. I want them to have some activity, but fortunately that filter does tell us whether or not they're active at all. I mean, if they don't even comment or like or share or do anything at all, on other people's content, then it's like knocking on a door when absolutely no one's home. That's pointless. But I'm actually looking for the people that aren't heavily engaged because they're needing the help that I might have to offer to them. So, but I use that filter all the time. Make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Lisa's asking about how you find your connection rate.
Oh, you should watch last week's meeting probably. We covered that
It's
in
built
detail.
into the systems we use, and I can go by campaign. I can go overall. I've got all kinds of stats that I get with my systems. Amazing.
Okay, thanks. I'll watch last week's. This was really great, Mike. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. I enjoy doing this for everyone to kind of like to share, the little things we all know, right? The little things we learned and stuff. And I love the group here. This is my favorite hour of the week, quite frankly.